There's a pattern I've seen probably 40 times across different industries, different company sizes, different products. A salesperson has a great discovery call. The prospect is engaged, asks good questions, says things like, "This is exactly what we've been looking for." The salesperson goes back to the office, builds a thorough proposal, and delivers what they genuinely believe is their best work. And then the prospect goes quiet, not hostile, not negative, just quiet. The follow-up emails get two-word replies. The second meeting never gets scheduled. 3 weeks later, the deal shows up in the CRM as lost, no decision. The salesperson calls their manager and says, "I don't understand." They loved the demo. Here's what actually happened. The prospect didn't love the demo. They liked the product. Those are not the same thing. Liking a product and deciding to buy it are separated by a specific cognitive gap, and most salespeople never close that gap. They present features, benefits, maybe a case study, and then they wait. And waiting in sales is just losing in slow motion. The gap between "this looks interesting" and "we should buy this" is almost never about the product. It's about whether the prospect can see their own situation clearly enough to justify a change. That's the real problem, and it has a structure, which means it has a solution. The solution is called the DOME framework, 4 words. Each one does a specific job, and when you use all 4 in order, something shifts in the room. You stop presenting and start helping them decide. Here's how it works. D is for diagnosis. Before you show anything, you name what you observed, not what you think they need, not what your product solves. What you heard them tell you, reflected back with precision. Something like, "Based on what you shared with us, your team is running 3 separate reporting tools. None of them talk to each other, and your VP is pulling numbers manually every Friday afternoon. Here's what I understand the cost of that to be." That's it. You're not selling yet. You're demonstrating that you listened. This matters more than most salespeople realize, because the number one reason proposals fail isn't price, it's that the prospect doesn't feel understood. They assume the proposal is templated, generic, built for someone else. Diagnosis is how you prove it isn't. O is for outcome. Now you name the specific future state they described, not the one you think sounds good, the one they actually said they wanted. There's a critical distinction here. Most salespeople present outcomes that impress. The outcomes step asks you to present outcomes that resonate. The difference is, impressive outcomes are about your product's capabilities. Resonant outcomes are about the prospect's stated priorities. If they told you in discovery that their CEO is personally tracking time to close on enterprise deals, your outcome statement isn't "streamline your sales operations." It's "reduce your enterprise sales cycle enough that your CEO stops asking why it's taking so long." You're using their language, their metric, their pain point, anchored to something they already told you mattered. This is anchoring in the behavioral economics sense, but it's ethical anchoring because you're anchoring to reality, not to a number you invented. M is for mechanism. This is where you explain how your solution produces the outcome, not a feature dump, not a demo replay, one clear causal chain. Here's why our approach works where others haven't. Instead of requiring your team to change how they enter data, we map to what they're already doing. That's why adoption rates look different at month 3 than what you've probably seen before. The mechanism step is where challenger sale thinking applies most directly. You're not just saying what you do, you're offering a perspective on why the problem exists and why your solution addresses the root cause rather than the symptom. You're teaching, not pitching. One mechanism, explained clearly enough that your prospect could explain it to their CFO tomorrow. That's the test. E is for evidence, not a case study library, one story. Relevant, specific, and ideally from an industry or company profile that maps to theirs. A company similar to yours, roughly the same headcount, similar sales structure, same challenge with manual reporting, saw their close rate on enterprise accounts improve by 18% in the first 2 quarters. Here's specifically what changed in how their team operated. The peak-end rule from behavioral economics tells us that people don't remember the average of an experience, they remember the peak and the end. Evidence is your peak. It's the moment the solution becomes real, and it should land right before your recommendation, so the emotional high transfers directly into their decision-making. Here's a pattern I've seen with B2B sales professionals who adopt this structure. The first thing that changes isn't their close rate, it's the quality of the objections they get. Instead of "we need to think about it," they start getting, "Can you speak to how this would work with our current ERP?" That's not resistance, that's engagement. That's someone who has mentally moved into the problem-solving phase. You cannot get that question if they're still stuck on whether the product is relevant. The DOME framework works in discovery recaps, formal proposals, and executive presentations. It works in the first slide of a deck or the first 3 minutes of a verbal debrief. The order matters. The specificity matters. The discipline to not skip diagnosis because you're excited to get to evidence, that especially matters. Here's what to do before the end of today. Take one proposal or presentation you have in progress right now, something you're preparing to deliver this week. Read it once and ask yourself, if I removed every product name and every feature description, would this document still sound like it was written specifically for this prospect? If the answer is no, start with write 2 sentences of diagnosis. Just that. What did they tell you that proves you were listening? That's the move. 15 minutes, 1 document, 2 sentences, because the deal you're about to lose isn't lost on price, it's lost on clarity. Tell me about the last time you delivered a proposal you felt good about, and then heard nothing back. What do you think was actually missing?